So here's the thing about Linux. Most people in the world of technology, whether they be beginners or veterans, have an expectation about how that technology should work. iPhone users don't hate Android just on principle most of the time, they're just not used to how things work on anything that isn't an iPhone. The same goes for Windows and Mac OS. People who use one or the other exclusively will often dislike the one they don't use because they're not used to it. They don't feel at home using it. The only exception here is that everyone should hate Microsoft and Windows universally because they'll do anything they can to nickel and dime you, and the only way we're ever going to see Windows get better is if people leave. But that's not what we're here for. In the world of Linux, there are a lot of options available. So the idea of this is absolutely correct and this is wrong is very subjective. Obviously, there are things like vulnerabilities in code which would allow hackers to potentially harm other people. Those vulnerabilities are absolutely wrong, whether it be a computer that fits in your pocket or a computer the size of a room. So when people are leaving Windows or Mac OS and going to Linux, should the Linux community just be copying either a Windows layout or a Mac layout? Today we're going to be looking at MX Linux, one of the most popular Linux distributions on DistroWatch at the time of filming. Unlike the previous videos in this series where we'd look at KDE Plasma, the closest thing to a Windows desktop environment, or GNOME, the closest thing to a Mac OS desktop environment, today we'll be looking at something different. It's called XFCE, and you might have seen some of the other distributions that we've looked at on this channel offering a version of their distribution with this desktop environment, because that's what this is. KDE Plasma, GNOME, and XFCE are the layer that the user interacts with on top, which is why you see so many distributions with KDE Plasma. The under the hood is the difference of each distribution. But one thing that MX Linux is doing differently is their default version is XFCE. So let's take a look at it and see what all the fuss is about. Type in MX Linux into your browser's search engine and it should be the first result, but double check the link just to be safe. You'll notice that a lot of the wording around MX Linux mentions that it's not a very heavy operating system. This might not be so obvious in practice because almost every single Linux distribution is lightweight compared to the bloat of Windows. But what about those older PCs that Microsoft told you to throw away because they didn't have a TPM chip? This is one of the biggest reasons to try MX Linux, to save older hardware. And we're talking actually old as well, not just can't run Windows 11 old. Onwards we go. Clicking download at the top of the page gives us a few options. Yes, there is a KDE version, but as we've mentioned, we've looked at KDE a lot in this channel. So let's go on an adventure. The first link should get you there. Now it's time to transfer this ISO over to your Ventor USB. If you don't have a Ventor USB, don't worry. You can turn almost any USB lying around into one, but it will wipe all the data on it. There is a long and detailed explanation of this process over in this video here, but for the sake of ensuring that the video you're watching right now is complete, we'll go through the very fast version. Download Balena Etcher, download Ventoy, open Balena Etcher, select Ventoy in the first section, select your USB in the second section, make sure everything is backed up on that USB because once you hit flash, you've got yourself an empty Ventoy USB to load up with ISOs. Now we shut down the computer we want to install MX Linux on, plug in our Ventoy USB, turn on the computer while repeatedly tapping F2 or delete on our keyboard to get into the BIOS. Find the boot override or equivalent setting, boot into the Ventoy USB, select MX Linux, and roll off. Again, if that was way too fast for you, the slow version is over in this video. But now that we're finally booted into MX Linux, we can slow back down and take a proper look at it. The first thing that's very different is our MX Linux boot menu. Normally the countdown would just send you into the operating system, but that won't get us far here. So we need to select the first option manually. This isn't very beginner friendly. After a few moments, we should be booted into MX Linux properly with XFCE. You can already see the differences would be quite substantial for a beginner who just needs a Windows replacement. One difference for personal preference is that right-clicking to get to the display settings is missing. That's not necessarily wrong though. Installation is a bit different to what we're used to. The first thing we'll be asked is arguably the most important. Are we wiping all the data from our SSD for a fresh install? Once we've decided, and most importantly, ensured that all the data on this SSD is backed up, MX Linux will get to work straight away, rather than setting up accounts and the like. Again, there's nothing wrong with this approach, it's just different. Once 90% of the drive is set up, we'll get the rest of the setup process. There are a lot of helpful tips scattered around everywhere, which is very handy. Once we're done, we'll reboot into the new OS, and all up, it was an extremely fast process, perhaps the fastest install of any operating system on this channel. Again, this is targeted at slower hardware, so it's natural that it would be very fast if it was done on newer hardware. For anyone who feels like a fish out of water, the welcome screen gives us the option to go on a tour of the OS, which we'll do. A lot of thought has gone into this, with the developers knowing that this isn't what people are used to coming from Windows or Mac OS. Best of all, they've covered our next stop. System updates are in the panel. That's what they've called the taskbar or dock on this desktop environment. The update icon will be green when there are updates to be done. This is a perfect example of how little one needs to do to avoid a terminal. We can see the terminal output, but when it's time to interact with it, there's a GUI or graphical user interface. We'll check the first box and click upgrade. And this part might take a moment depending on the speed of your internet. This is such a simple graphical user interface to wrap a terminal in, but that is all you need to pass the no terminal challenge. A beginner could easily navigate this. Once we're done, let's restart for good measure and move on to installing Steam. The tool mentioned MX Package Installer. And sure enough, when we open the Not a Start menu, we can see it right here. It's not as pretty as Discover, Bazaar, or the Pop Shop, but there's a reason for that. Let's drop down the folder titled Games, select Steam, and click Install. And here's that terminal-like window again, showing us that this isn't pretending to be a fancy package manager. If you've seen any of the other videos in this series, and you've noticed that an otherwise perfectly good Linux distribution failed because they required terminal, you might think that it's not a big deal and the developer's time is better spent elsewhere, rather than creating a GUI. But this is literally all they would need to do. The instructions are clear, so beginners can see what they need to do and do it. There's a clear read this section and a clear do something section. So let's type Y and press enter. Pop-up windows telling us that a task is done is also great for beginners. Now we close MXPI and move back over to the Not a Start menu to find and open Steam. You can imagine a Windows fanboy exclaiming, "See, it doesn't work, Windows is better," just because they had to wait 30 seconds for the Steam installer to do its thing. If someone was doing this on Windows, they would still be waiting for the damn operating system to install, seeing as, if you're lucky, Windows still takes over half an hour to install. Signing into Steam is the same as Windows, as are most other things from this point onwards. The only real difference here is optional, and that's a recommendation to check ProtonDB for compatibility with whatever game you want to play. We're going to benchmark Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which has a native Linux version, but we don't want to use that. So after installing, back on the game menu page, we'll click the cogwheel, select Properties, select Compatibility, and check the box labeled Force the use of a specific Steam Play compatibility tool. The keen eye menu will notice that Steam has started downloading more files. That's Proton, the layer that allows us to play our Windows games on every Linux distribution. So once everything has finished downloading, we'll be playing the up-to-date version of Shadow of the Tomb Raider running through Valve's Proton compatibility layer, which is better than playing the outdated Linux version that the developers don't support anymore. This step is only for games that were ported to Linux officially, but every other Windows game, which doesn't have a Linux version, will automatically use Proton. So that's MX Linux. It was relatively easy to install, and required no terminal. But is it good for beginners? For people who need the closest thing to Windows to get away from Windows as soon as possible, it's probably not going to work out for them, especially for those who aren't as technologically savvy. But for those who have the time and patience and want to go on an adventure and try something that isn't very close to Windows or very close to Mac, then trying XFCE with MX Linux is a great idea.